I'm Stuart Semple, I'm an artist obviously, and this is my show, It's Hard to Be a Saint in This City. The name derives, I think originally it was a Bruce Springsteen song, It's Hard to Be a Saint in This City, but I took it from a David Bowie cover of a Springsteen song.
Let's make some music, make some money, find some models for wives.
All of the work relates to all the other pieces of work, you understand? So there's a narrative that runs through the series of works. So in this case, they tell the story of a kind of geeky, probably homosexual teenage kid with supernatural powers who's been abused and is trying to articulate the way he feels through painting. And that isn't me, that's the character that I've developed for the work. So all of the work has something in common, which is an idea of sort of isolation or atomisation, and that's key for me, and that's something that runs through everything that I've made, I think, in some way, and I don't know, that's why they're kind of autobiographical. But what also happens across the paintings is that there's a dialogue with painting itself and the way I paint in particular. So it might be the case that one painting leads into the next painting and then I realise it's kind of gone on the wrong tangent and then I sort of pull it back. And probably for this show, ultimately I made a lot more than this in a lot of ways, and I painted over these several times. So for instance, How Soon Is Now, I probably painted 6 or 7 times. And you can see some of that history left on the canvas. So it's like, I had this really old art tutor and he always said, you know, painting's like a loaf of bread, you can build it up and knock it back down. And that's something that I do all the time in the work, so that's why you get these quite dense sort of layers. But also with these, you know, paint's an amazing material, and you can do two things. You can try and rein it in and force it to do something, or you can kind of let it lead you and you can embrace it a little bit. And I think I like the potential to fail with paint, like where it doesn't quite work, and I'm trying to find in myself sort of bravery to sort of let it go and leave it a bit sort of half finished or a bit sort of underdone.
Nothing we can do. Love must be forgotten. Life can always start up anew.
I think with this show I've been a lot more open to sort of embracing the failure in things, or the things that go wrong, or how, or sort of the imperfection in my own painting. And there seems to be a lot more space in things, you know, an idea of leaving things sort of half done or sort of undercooked in a way. So in that way my painting's changed. Also the painting's expanded into other sort of formats, I think, like the foam pieces. I still see them as an extension of my painting rather than sculptures, but in that way it's kind of becoming 3D, I suppose. And in a strange way a bit more interactive, or more, I don't know, like the materials are dictating to me what's possible with what I'm doing, rather than me trying to shoehorn them into doing something that they're not really capable of. Okay, so the foam pieces have a variety of phrases, so bum, wuss, loser, creep. And they kind of come from that sort of mocking mentality of sort of school playground bullies, but the point of them is how feeble they are, how hollow they are. I mean, they're not really offensive, sort of gritty. You know, initially I had quite a lot more sort of hardcore phrases, but actually it's in the sort of failing of them actually to hurt or disable. And that kind of comes through in the sculptural form as well, because in a way, you know, they're crumpled, they're a bit forced, they're not really capable, you know, so it's sort of, it's a way to sort of diminish the power of them, I suppose, to belittle them in a way.
Let's make some music, make some money, find some models for wives.
I've made a series of paintings on fridge doors, and they're sort of manufactured, in a way, fabricated objects, and I suppose in that way they comment on art history. You know, obviously people like Koons or Murakami, you know, you have that sort of perfection of a sort of mechanised kind of object. But what I'm trying to do is again bringing that sort of personality, that emotionality into the object by including again the sort of the blip or the error or the thing that doesn't quite work. So all the phrases on the fridge doors are hand painted and then they're mechanised, so they're cut by a laser. It's quite high tech at the end, but initially it's painting, so they sort of retain that gesture that I find lacking from a lot of the sort of conceptual work that I mentioned. And I think by that means that we can identify it with a bit more, make it a bit more personal, a bit more sort of emotive. The other thing that I'm hoping that they do is convey something beyond what they describe. You know, the text itself contains these sort of micro sort of narratives in a way, and through reading those, I believe they sort of conjure other images that aren't contained within the fridge. And it's sort of that thing, you know, a word can give you 1,000 pictures, whatever, you know, and it sort of does that. I think text is a very, very powerful thing because it plays with the imagination. You know, you can imagine an image and it can absorb you. It's like when you read fiction, you know, it transports you to another place. And I think art's capable of that.
The comfort of my mother and the weight of the